Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining another episode of the PM Job Search Series. My name is Shavi. I am a product manager at LinkedIn and host of today's show. We have over 1,000 people register for today's event, so please drop in the chat, introduce yourself, and where you're joining us from. So, with this series, we're running a 4-part special series with Phil Terry, author of the Never Search Alone book, founder of collaborative game, and has devoted the last 25 years helping top talents like you in the internet and product management space to build better products, companies, and careers. So if some of you follow me from PM Learning Series knew that Phil was a guest from last year's show, and then we continue our partnership because, hey, looking for the right job for the next phase of your career, especially in today's environment, is really, really challenging, right? So thank you, Phil, for doing such a great job and helping all the job seekers out there, and obviously for some of the panelists we would have today as well. And I see some folks are already dropping in the chat. Laura from Nigeria, Kathleen from New Jersey, Amber from Colorado. Please continue to introduce yourself and welcome. So last week, we kicked off our first session with our very, very special guest, the wonderful Marty Kagan. We talk about the power of never search alone and some of the very special considerations around PM job search. So in case you missed it, please go to the event details where you will find links to Marty's session to watch a replay, as well as this is the second session, right? To sign up for the third and the fourth so that you get a complete overview of the never search alone approach, which is how Phil take actually the lens of a product development and apply it to the job search process. He had over 400 drafts, iterations, just to serve you and to make it, the most useful for you. So today we're going to talk about a really special topic, the power of a job search console. We're going to start with understanding a little bit more what that means. But Phil, before we start, if you can give us a big TLDR of the 3 big ideas in Never Search Alone, and explain what resources you can provide to the community. That would be
wonderful.
Great.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shivi. You're doing such a wonderful job. And I just want everyone in the chat to applaud Shivi. She's amazing. She's such a great leader of the product community globally. Look at everyone who's coming in from around the world. I want to just say special thanks to everybody and call out those of you from Nigeria. I actually spent time in Nigeria in the late 1980s, and we have a growing community of Never Search Alone folks in Nigeria, which is really thrilling. So Ottawa, Canada, South Africa, Nigeria, of course, all over the United States. So glad to have all of you here. 3 big ideas in Never Search Alone. This is my book, came out last September. 3 big ideas, and then we're going to get into the first of the 3 big ideas, the power of job search councils, which is what today's entire session is about. But 3 big ideas. 1, never search alone. Instead, form a job search council. We're going to talk more about that today, so I'm not going to say a whole lot more now. Second idea, candidate market fit. Look, we all know the idea of product market fit and how important that is to business success. Well, candidate market fit is critical to career success. And what it is, it's an intersection of what you want and how the market sees you, what the market realities are. Super important. Third idea, there's 4 legs to the negotiation stool. 4 legs. It's not just about comp, but also it's think of it this way. What do you need to succeed in the role, and how can you negotiate for that? And the 4 legs are comp, budget, resources, and support. Now, this applies. We've had, as Shivi so graciously said, we went through 400 drafts of this book. We had thousands of job seekers use it before we published it, 2,500 comments, and we boiled it on down to the things that we know work, that really disrupts the conventional process, that leaves you alone, isolated, anxious, insecure, and often vulnerable to making suboptimal decisions. Instead, never search alone. All right, so Shivi, with that, and I guess the last thing I'll say is phil.org, P-H-Y, that's the only thing you need to remember. You can sign up for a job search council. It's free. We have all these free resources. We have this volunteer community of product managers ready to help anyone, not just product managers, CEOs, college students, marketers, salespeople, whoever you are, get together with peers, and we'll give you training resources all free because we want to give this back to the world and help more and more people, especially now during these tech layoffs. So How's that for a quick intro, Shivi?
That's awesome. You nailed it. I'm just going to say something from the community. Great book. John is a fervent reader, a fan. So for those who miss, recording from the part 1 with Marty Kagan, make sure this is the link. Again, it's in the event details tab, and make sure you check that out. Summary of 3 big ideas. Never search alone, which we'll talk a lot about, the social approach of forming a job search console. Second is how to find candidate market fit, just like product market fit, next week, next Thursday, same time. 4 legs of negotiation. Hey, it's not just about comps and salaries. There are a lot more stuff you can negotiate to set yourself up for success. So that's 2 weeks from now. So make sure, again, all of the links to sign up are in the event details page. So make sure you check it out. And then last but not least, job search is a 4-letter word. So if you want to figure out more resources, go to field.org. Here it's on Field's name, and just make sure you check it out. All right. Now, without further ado, I like to introduce 2 other very special guests today. I'm going to bring them to the stream. First person is Bonnie. Bonnie is a seasoned product and marketing leader with extensive experience in 2-sided marketplace, fintech, and staffing solutions. She's passionate about engaging customers to solve problems and growing businesses. Bonnie had led product and marketing teams at PayPal and Upwork, also led Bill.com's post-IPO strategy. Currently, Bonnie is the EVP and GM of Agent Solutions at Inside Real Estate. Thank you so much, Bonnie, for joining us today and sharing your perspectives and stories.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Our next panelist, Corleen. Corleen is the Director of Product for Employer Branding at Glassdoor. She and her team focus on building tools to help employers tell their authentic story in order to help job seekers like you find a job in a company that you love. So thank you so much for joining us, Corleen.
Wow, these are 2 real pioneers in product management and also in developing the Never Search Alone method. They're one of the first to set up job search councils.
That's awesome. So folks, if you have any question for Phil, for Corleen, for Bonnie, please drop them in the chat, and don't be shy. Ask those questions. All right. Now let's get started, Phil. We talk a lot about job search console. What is it for those who are new to this approach?
Well, I'll say a few words, and then I'm going to ask Corleen and Bonnie to really tell us, because they lived it and they helped to create it. So it's a group. It's a small group of job seekers, peers, not necessarily all in the same function. Like could be cross-function, cross-industry, like product management, marketing, sales, that kind of thing. And you come together regularly to give each other support. The biggest insight that we had in writing the book and working with people like Bonnie and Corleen and thousands of others is that no matter who you are, and these are 2 like really talented people we have here today, no matter who you are, public company CEO, first time job seeker from college, whatever, experienced executive like these 2, you're going to feel anxious and insecure during the search. But if you come together with others, you can flip that into hope, motivation, accountability, and confidence. The big deal. So now let me shut up. Corleen, Bonnie, do you want to say a little bit about what a job search council is and why you might recommend it and how it works and all that?
Sure. I can start, I guess. So I started a job search council in August. It was actually even before Phil's book came out. Then I found out Corleen even started one even earlier, so she'll share about that. But yeah, I mean, part of it is like it seems very daunting to start a job search, and so it's like, where do I start? How do I get my arms around this? And when you get together with others that are in the same boat and really at the same point in their journey in terms of starting a search. I mean, I had talked to Phil when I was ready to start looking, and he kind of talked to me a little bit about forming a council. And so I just got together with some folks that I also knew were looking for jobs, and everyone was super excited to have this network. We had our first meeting where I kind of laid out, like, what do we want to accomplish? And just the level of energy in that discussion, I mean, you immediately feel like you truly aren't alone. We were already sharing ideas and stuff with each other. And then I kind of mentioned the book. So that was even before the book was printed, and the process. And so we kind of committed as a team and hold ourselves accountable to following that process. And so I can share more about how that went. But even just having that kind of initial kickoff with the team is just confidence building and just anxiety reducing in terms of how to start your search.
Cool. Corleen, would you agree? You built one of the first job search councils, you and several other women. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Yeah.
Sure. And I need to give a lot of credit to Priya, who I think you interviewed later last year, who actually was our moderator and founder of our job search council. I have had my job with Glassdoor a little over a year. And what's been so remarkable, that job search council that I was a part of for months before that is now my peer mentoring group. We still continue to meet. We trade information. It's like having your own kind of board of directors. There's 7 of us that constantly help each other out. The job search council, yeah, I think we had a very early pre-read of the book, and we used some of the techniques in there. There's a Manukin doc that we use to hold each other accountable, because job searching's hard and you get exhausted. And when you get exhausted, you're tempted to take an offer or that's maybe not right for you. And by holding each other accountable to, is this what you really wanted? Is this what you're really looking for? Are you sure you're not just tired? It really made a huge difference.
And you referenced the Manukin 2-pager, and I just want to share, that was a tool in the book named after Allison Manukin, who ran a division at Intuit, and then the CEO when they spun that out. She's now a professor at Harvard Business School. And what that does, the Manukin 2-pager, and it's a part of the free toolkit that we provide, and we'll put a link in chat where you can download free tools, is it helps you think about, Corleen, what you want and also what you don't want, right? And it becomes an important part of figuring out your candidate market fit. Can you say a little bit more about the Manukin 2-pager?
Sure. So I think, you hit a really big key of what you don't want. On the surface, a product job, feels like a product job, but the reality is life in a startup is very different from life in a big company. Thinking about, even if you're managing people now, do you want to continue to manage people, or do you really just love the strategy piece? Really having some tough conversations first with yourself. As part of our job council, we kind of interviewed each other and talked about that, and then just built upon that. It really gives you that foundation to move forward and get through some stressful times.
Yeah.
I think of the Manukin 2-pager, it creates a product development process, like the first draft of your product 1-pager, right? Like you kind of do that internal reflection of like, what do my company needs, or what do you need as the seeker, right? You ask your aspirations for your next career move, what you're looking for, what are your top 3s, what are the must-haves, must-not-haves, equally as important, so that you have a guideline. And then you go after to figure out, well, what part of it meets reality and, and can still survive. So actually next week is when we will talk a lot more about the Manukin 2-pagers, as well as some other techniques to like validate the candidate market fit. But I think Sarah here summarized it really well. And thank you, Corleen, for sharing your experience. I do want to also respond to a couple of folks from the audience. Corleen, I think you have some fans in the audience. Reba saying hi. We have some fans who joined us last week with the session with Theo and Marty. Thanks for coming back for this second session, and hopefully looking forward to see many of you in the next 2 sessions as well. And then we also have folks who are fans of the job search console. In addition to this panelist, right? There's a lot of love for people getting value out of the JSCs. I think one thing that John said here is about seeing your blind spot through all this peers. What I love about, well, Bonnie, you said the level of energy you immediately feel and encounter in a very lonely process. A lot of us don't think about it, like don't realize that until we like experience it, right? So I think it's really powerful. And then to what you said, Corleen, about board of directors, right? It's having this sounding board of people supporting you, being on this journey with you. And I think what's most miracle was your job search council actually stick together right before you take the job, helping you not to take the easy route to get whatever first opportunity that came up, but also stay with you as you continue that journey, right? That you said after the job search, to continue talking about, hey, I now get a new job. Now what, right? It's just getting a job is the end of a search process, but just the first step of a beginning of a new process. So it's important to be in that circle together. And we have Ranchana's excited about the first straight SC meeting next week. And last but not least, I keep saying that job search is a 4-letter word, so make sure you check it out and sign up for free tools. Now, so we talk a lot about the benefits of Job Search Console. Let's say we get the audience hooked and wanted to learn more about it, right? Let's talk about some of the tactics, the steps to first, how do you go about forming a job search console? I know, Phil, that you have this volunteer services that you help matching job seekers. But Bonnie, I think you went out on your own to recruit relevant folks to be in your job search console. Can you talk about like the approach that you took? Who do you want to include in that job search console? What's your lessons learned? What's your approach? And yeah, how do you advise people to do that?
So I will say I did it on my own because before Phil and team had the whole process together. So what they put together is really amazing, and there is a process around matching, and there's, I think he delivers saying over 150 councils now and growing. So I highly encourage folks to go through that. There's moderators for all those councils that really follow the process in the book, and there's a lot of guidance and resources that Phil and team provide those moderators. So when I started, it was more reaching out to my network when I kind of announced I was looking, and it was interesting just within LinkedIn, the community of folks reaching back out. It was like, oh, I'm actually thinking of leaving my job, or I just left my job. And so that enabled me to kind of form that council. And I was said like, hey, why don't we get together? I'm reading this book. I want to follow this process. Or do you want to commit and follow this process with me as well? It actually helped on our council. So I'm in product. I was looking for product roles at the time. And I had members that were also in product. And so there were some similarities there. And then we also had a few members that were in business development and other functions. And so I actually felt like it was a good mix to have a few folks in my similar function. So when I was bringing up specific challenges or needs, they were able to provide that feedback. But then having that diversity of thought of folks having just like a different perspective than like what I've experienced was super helpful. Even the Manukan 2-pager, quite honestly, we shared it, like we helped it put together as a group, but then we shared it with each other, and we actually walked through it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's true for me too. And we would steal ideas from each other. So even putting together, the thinking process you go to develop some of these assets with the council is super, super helpful, and you don't have to do that on your own either. So yes, I would say, having that kind of diversity in terms of functions, consistency in terms of where you are in the job search process. It's hard to have someone near the end and someone near the beginning. Were probably the biggest things. And then just a willingness to share. We had a little bit of a charter where we kind of agreed on like, here's what we're going to contribute, and here's what we hope to get out of it. And so we kind of aligned on that in our first session.
Corleen, what's your experience forming a job search console? Did Priya reach out to you to form it, or what was your process? And talk about the diversity and focus, like were you all product people, or tell us more about it.
Yeah, so I'm a member of the Women in Product group, which has Facebook groups, it has Slack groups. I was in the Slack group and actually saw Priya post that, she was looking for some other people to search with, and reached out to her. And we ended up talking one-on-one. She did a little bit of kind of a screening, which I think was good. And we got to be part of the group. And she introduced us, had us reach out to Phil, get a pre-read of the book, and start the conversations there. We were all product people. I appreciated the fact that we were all roughly at the same level. Not everyone was looking to manage people, but all, roughly the same amount of experience. So this became really important when we started sharing everything from job offers to how to interview, things like that, because while we again had people looking for everything from, large companies to small, sharing what those interview processes were like for roughly the same level at a different company was really helpful, because the homework for interview practices for product can be brutal. And really understanding where it makes sense to go through all of that versus, are you sure this is the right fit? Do you really want to spend, how many hours putting together a presentation was helpful. I think also another thing is, especially since a lot of us had managed people in the past, being able to remind each other that, when we were recruiting, there's times you reject candidates have nothing to do with them. There's an internal candidate that comes up, you didn't have the skill set correctly defined. That support system of understanding the rejections that you go through are not really about you is everything. It gets you through. I think Phil said earlier, it's such a lonely process to go through, and having that support system was huge.
Yeah,
I definitely relate to that. I think especially, I say this a lot because last week we talked about it, Phil, right? Like during job search, your imposter syndrome is probably at the peak, where even if you're confident, you feel like you're not that great because you're against so many unknowns. There are potentially factors out of your control.
And everyone feels that way. Everyone.
Right? It's universal, but you don't know because people don't talk about it, right? Like it's something hidden. And I think it actually impacted women the most, right? In terms of beating ourselves up, being really harsh, not feeling like we're qualified for a role. So I think having this support system definitely is really, really helpful. I think Corleen and Bonnie, you both touch upon some stuff. I just want to sort of summarize and synthesize it for our audience. Would you say, when it comes to diversity versus focus, career stages, type of job search, would you say for you to form a console that's like the most productive, you would want to ideally have people around the same career stage? So you're like kind of looking for same type of job at the same level. And then it's okay to be like, not necessarily everybody have to be in a product. It's okay to be like product related function too, to like increase the diversity of thoughts. But it's more important to get like the same career stage together versus someone who might be looking for a manager role versus a junior IC role or a pivoter. Would you agree with that approach?
Yeah, completely. I completely agree with, yeah.
Yeah, I think, Phil, last year we talked about one other things to consider is potentially, you said fast lane versus slow lane. So if someone is looking for a job full time, they might move faster, right? They might get like 10 interview line up. Whereas if you're working, working full time and looking part time, then you might not move as fast. So I think
we'll separate people on this fast lane, slow, and everyone wants a job as soon as they can get it. But if you're in a job and looking, we call you a slow seeker because you can't move as fast with meetings and work as opposed to someone who's unemployed, where you can meet on a weekly basis and try to get and you want to move faster. So we do separate that because we find that it can affect the tempo if you mix those two up. But otherwise, yeah, we want the same peer level more or less, but diversity. Once we've achieved that. I know a couple of people in chat have said, hey, I've registered, but when do I get matched? I just want to address that. If you've registered for a job search council through phil.org, we're going to match you as soon as we get a good group of people together, right? So the good news is we're getting lots and lots of applications, and our volunteer team is working overtime to make that happen. We do require that you attend orientation, but you can be matched before the orientation happens. It just depends on whether we've got the right amount of people, if you don't mind me addressing that. Yeah.
No, that's great. So I also like one thing. So obviously folks, sign up to get matched through field.org. Hopefully you get matched soon. But if you want to be resourceful, let's say you're really urgent and like want to take more control of that process, what Corleen said was also really helpful. Being in groups, right, of WIP, like Women in Product, or some other groups. Introduce yourself or find people who are looking for a similar, a peer group of support. I think that's how you can be resourceful and sort of taking control of some of that. I do want to talk about. Do you mind
if I just say quickly that Women in Product's a terrific organization, and actually we're Elizabeth Ames, who's the executive director and CEO, she and I are talking and working on how can we craft something, bringing this to that whole organization, which I'm super excited about. It's a great organization. And Bonnie, so Corleen or Priya posted in the Women in Product. I think, Bonnie, when you were looking for people, did you post on LinkedIn openly, or did you email people, or how did you do it when you did this on your own?
Yeah, so the reason I was looking is I took a sabbatical for a year. So I was out of the market for a year. And when I came back, I wanted to have a very focused approach to the job search. So I kind of announced on LinkedIn that, hey, I'm back and ready to kick off my job search. And I just got kind of a flood of wonderful responses, and definitely other people that were like, hey, I'm looking too. And then when I was chatting with you, Phil, about the process and the Job Search Council, I was like, well, let me reconnect with some of these folks. So actually some of the interviews I did were with during my process to build my Manukan 2-pager and reverse exit interviews and that sort of stuff. I actually discovered even through that process other people that were looking. And so that's kind of how we like pulled it together. And again, just like followed the process.
Yeah, cool. And I'll just, for listeners who are new to this, Bonnie referred to some things like reverse exit interviews and listening tour. We're going to talk more about that next week, because that's about the candidate market fit and really understanding both what you want and how the market sees you. But it also is a great way to build and enhance your network. And sometimes you find people for your job search council, as Bonnie just said.
Yeah, some of those relationships actually turn out to be some of the greater ones, because you bond together through this challenging process, right? Yeah. Share challenge always adds more depth to the relationship. Now, I want to switch gear to talk a little bit about, and thank you for sharing how you recruit your people, because that's important, right? How the various ways you can approach and be resourceful about that. Now let's talk about, let's say you form your console. What do you do? Like, what are some ground rules, best practice? How do you give us some example of like, hey, this is one meeting, here's the agenda. Like, what do you talk about? How do you get the most out of that session?
Great.
Yeah, so when I kicked it off, I actually started with a charter. So I'm not sure if this was in the book.
Yes, in the book, yeah.
Yeah, but part of it was aligning as a team, like what we wanted to get out of the council, what we were going to contribute. And then really the whole first part is just trying to figure out what you want to do. So doing that self-reflection in terms of understanding what you're looking for, and those first initial processes around the candidate market fit. And so I felt like that part of the council was when we engaged kind of more tactically, like, what is this process? How do we get started, and kind of sharing a little bit our tactics and lessons learned. And then when we started progressing more and we were actually going on interviews, there was a lot more of sharing, like, okay, I'm talking to this company. Here's what I'm kind of feeling about this company that's good. Here's what's not so good. Here's potential flags. Preparing for this interview, I need help here. And that's where we were just kind of less about like the tactics of the book, but just helping each other through that process. And that's where it was super helpful to get other perspectives, because you get inside your head where it's like, oh, they haven't contacted me in 2 days, or is this a red flag? Like, I don't know. Or you're making a shift from a small company to a big company. And so you're trying to understand, well, this is just how they operate. So that was kind of a different phase of the council. But yeah, in the beginning, it was really like us taking the time to think about what we wanted and what we were looking for in a job. So then when we were actually engaging recruiters and stuff, we were more confident, and we could better evaluate the opportunities.
Yeah.
Corleen, do you have anything to add about your experience?
Very similar. I would say one of the things that made a huge difference for us is we fairly quickly moved from storing notes in a Google Doc and sharing things there to setting up a Slack channel for ourselves, because we were from different time zones, and we did manage to find time to connect each week, but it was generally half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. So we had to really prioritize, who needed help and what we wanted to talk through. And a lot of the other things happened async in that Slack channel. We had a channel for job offers, a channel for interview prep. We DM'd each other to practice. I mean, it was a big thing with having that as part of it.
And I'll jump in and
awesome.
say that we're setting up Slack channels for all the ones that we set up, but we hit the maximum for the free. So we can't centrally, we're in touch with Slack I reached out to some folks there and to see if they would give us a free, premium account for this free community. Hopefully that'll work out. But to your point, Corleen, job search councils on their own can set up their own Slack channels as opposed to us doing it centrally. And it's a great way to facilitate communications. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's awesome because then you can solve problem async, right? And then you're also helping each other out live. Let's talk a little bit about dealing with group dynamics, because anytime you work with people, things could come up, and especially when it's doing like sort of a highly emotionally charged moment, like a job search process. Do you have like bigger personalities that's trying to take over a lot of times, or people who are very negative? And then how do you like avoid that from like maybe impacting negatively everybody else? Or what are some interesting dynamics, both positive and negative, that you would like to maybe talk through that helps, make a job search console stronger, and how you manage some of that?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the whole concept of a job search council is a bit about vulnerability. I mean, you're at a very vulnerable state when you're looking for a job. You have to put yourself out there. There's a lot of self-reflection you're doing. And I'm sure every council has different dynamics, but there was folks on my council that I knew very well because I was pulling it together, and then some were like contacts of contacts, so they were new. And I was actually surprised how open people were in sharing their feelings about the approach, how they were thinking about the job search, things that were happening to them. And it does in some ways kind of create this, like, I don't want to say cone of silence, but this cone of like trust within the council. And so I think it is important to kind of establish that trust in the beginning. I remember during one of the LinkedIn sessions that you did, Phil, there was some comments, and someone that was commenting, like, I'm a very introverted person and it's hard for me to share. And then as we were talking, they're like, you know what, it's actually easy for me to share with folks I don't know. It's with people that I do know that some of those dynamics come out. So I think just really about creating that like trusting environment. And sometimes it is easier to share some of those feelings with people you haven't met before. And I could see, like, after forming those bonds and even folks getting jobs, like continuing that relationship like Corleen did with her group. And, I know most of the folks that were in my council. So it is something that really does kind of carry on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like in my job council, there weren't challenges with group dynamics. It's similar, a lot of vulnerability, people very willing to share. And what was so great is everyone just almost kind of swarmed in together when someone was struggling to, ask thoughtful questions to help them think through things, or just to give support. We're here for you. Do you want to talk? Even if someone couldn't make the group session one-on-one. So I feel very lucky. We just had a really strong group.
If you don't, that's a great, referencing that swarm dynamic and the support you get. Bonnie has an amazing story. Bonnie, can you share that story? Wow.
Sure. Yeah, so actually this is pretty early on. We formed the council in August, and I was interviewing with a well-known large tech company in the Bay Area. And that process was going very well. I'm like, oh, I formed this council. I'm getting interviews. I interviewed with like 15 different people at that company, both on-site and online. In the last on-site, the recruiter told me, everyone really likes you. We want to make you an offer. I'm like, awesome. We chat a few days later. She's like, we're making you an offer. Again, she reiterated that. She's like, someone from HR reached out and discussed the numbers. And we had a little bit of discussion around range. Went through that whole process. And then I didn't hear anything for a few days. And I was like, okay. And then 3 or 4 days go by, and I'm like, this is a little odd. And then I got an email a week later on a Thursday, and just from that recruiter saying, can we chat? And I'm like, I remember having dinner with a friend. I'm like, this is not good. Like, this is not what, the next steps, at least she had outlined. And when I chatted with her, she's like, yeah, we're not going to do the offer. And it was still to this day not super clear to me as to why. In some ways, I think she was as surprised as I was. And so in that moment, it kind of all came crashing down because you're like, oh, this is like all going so smoothly. And I was in some ways putting my eggs in this basket. And I did see some red flags as well, just because I wasn't sure I wanted to go to such a large company. And my immediate reaction when I had chat after I hung up with her that Friday morning was to reach out to my job search counsel. So we also had a Slack, thank goodness. So I had to wait for another meeting, and I just kind of spilled out what had just happened and what she shared, and immediately got that level of support that I needed in the moment. And then could really help me like build back up that confidence and like pick it back up. And so having that kind of immediate reaction, and then even folks sharing, which I realized later, kind of what you were saying, Corleen, it wasn't really about me. I think there were some changes internally in the organization, which is why she couldn't really share that much about what was happening. But when you're emotional in that moment, you can't see that bigger picture. And so the council really helped me kind of see that side of it, gave me the weekend to kind of, decompress from that. And then I wanted to reignite the next week. And so by the following Friday, I had 3 more kind of opportunities in the hopper, where I had already talked to the recruiters and moving to the next round. And so that week felt like a year, just from emotional perspective, but just in managing that emotional roller coaster, and having more of a kind of sane outside perspective just helped me through that particular stage. And then there was so much more after that. Like there's just so many other times where there's highs and lows, and the council just like kept me steady, kept me doing the right things. And so I was, just super appreciative that I had that group of people to turn to.
So it's so wonderful that you can share this. And look, right. Other people have had this experience, and it's so devastating. And what I loved is that you immediately asked for help. You immediately reached out to your counsel, and they helped you, and they were there for you, and they helped you get back on your feet again quickly, which led to 3 great opportunities, and then eventually to the job you took, which is a great job. It's a great job, But wow, that really, I just want to cry. And Julie Renard in the chat is, I think, talking. Yeah, you cried last week, Julie. And I don't know if it was a similar kind of situation, but bouncing back faster with that support, right? Yeah. That's what we're talking about. That can make all the difference. Like if it had taken Bonnie a few weeks to bounce back, she might have missed the opportunity that she ended up taking, right? Which is a great job. So happy that you did that, Bonnie. Again, it fills my heart. By the way, the book is dedicated to my mom, Chick, who started the first council in 1960. And she died 10 years ago. But I know she's smile crying right now as she's hearing this conversation.
That's awesome. All right, Corleen, anything about group dynamics that from your group that you like to share, good or bad, or any reflection?
I think just a lot of the things that I've shared already, as far as, people coming together and being vulnerable. I think working through time zones is a big thing to figure out early on how you're going to carve that space together.
Yeah.
And again, just making sure people are on the similar path to you, so it feels like it's a collective experience, not a one-way street for somebody maybe mentoring but not able to receive something in return.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I wonder,
the give and take dynamic.
Yes.
I wonder if you could talk about one of the things your council I thought did so well, and I want all councils to do, is you really hung in there with each other to help people avoid taking jobs or going on interviews for jobs that were not right for them, based on all the work you had done, right? So Priya, I know that was true for her, and I think that was true for you and others. Can you talk a little bit about that dynamic?
Yeah, I think something that was said earlier today with the idea of the Manukin is it's a place to start. And as you go through and see different opportunities, you start to think about, well, would I maybe like that? This sounds kind of interesting. And having the group bring you back to, okay, well, you said your principles of what you really wanted and what you really didn't want, are the trade-offs right? Or is this just kind of a shiny object that's attracting you? I think that was really important.
And Bonnie, I think you concluded, by the way, that big tech company that ghosted you, that they were actually not on your path, right?
Yeah, I would have been so miserable. And honestly, I mean, in some ways, my counsel was like, remember your 2-pager? These are the things that you were concerned about. That is kind of what this company is. So, yeah, I mean, I understand when you're looking and you need an income and all that, just wanting to take something. And so I did kind of, rethink the candidate market fit piece a little bit after that. And I explicitly stopped looking at big companies. So any recruiter that reached out, I explicitly said no, versus I was way more open in the beginning, and really began focusing on companies that were a better fit for me. And I ended up, with more than one offer, and actually a few different roles. The role I ended up taking was broader than product, which is something that I didn't really think about when I started out the process. But because I, went through this and really thought about what I wanted to build in myself, the type of culture that I wanted to work in, as well as the type of role, I feel like I found a really, really great fit. So yeah, in this case, like, it absolutely was the best thing that could have happened, to be honest.
That's awesome. I think it resonates with our LinkedIn member, Feridon, as well. The right job as opposed to the right job now. I think it reminds all of us of this embracing long-term thinking in a short-term world, because you have so much temptation. So I think the magic of the Manukan 2-pager is really reminding you of your bigger why, your bigger purpose, right? Like, here are the things that I wanted to look for. And then having that sort of, sometimes you knew, like, maybe a job came up, you like didn't feel right, but you didn't have the courage to say no. I think having this concept, have something written down on a paper where you can refer back to, like, hey, this is what I said I'm going to do, versus like, when the opportunity that came up, like, temptations always all around. I wanted to ask one follow-up question that and the member earlier was asking. Michael was saying that, hey, I only have 2 people in my, job search council. Is that concerning? Like, Jeremy said, maybe 4 seems ideal, and he's happy with the balance. I wanted to know, how many folks do you have in your console, and what would be your ideal number?
Yeah. Go ahead, Corleen.
I have 7 in our job search council, and it's a lot if everybody needs to share, but the reality is there's different people have different problems. I think it's nice because if people can't make a meeting, you at least have some people who can make it. So it's allows you to, some people to take some time off if they need to. We had somebody who moved apartments who was busy for a while, different things like that happen. But that being said, if you have, 3 people who are committed, I think that can be just fine too.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, 2 is better than 0. So you need, and there's a point where it's too large too, where you don't feel like you're getting your opportunity to share. We had 4 or 5. Someone got a job pretty early on, which I kind of feel like 5 is the best number. And it could be a little larger if you're doing a little more asynchronous, like in Slack and that sort of stuff. But you do want your time when you're engaging with the team and having your time to share. So
I think, Willie would agree with you, Bonnie. 5 is the magic number for her. I like that Amazon analogy of like the pizza teen, right? Like 2 pizza that can fit 6 to 8 people. So I think absolutely no more than 8. That we know. So I think 6 is pushing it, like Corleen, like you said, 6 to 7 is probably the edge, right, for a maximum number to include. And anything is better than 0 or 1. So 2 is, you can continue to grow and expand. We're also almost coming up on time. Feel any last parting words, or any panelists have any words around, the Never Search Alone process, or, how you should think about forming, managing, leading, facilitating the Job Search Council?
Sure. I'll say a few words, and I'd obviously love to hear what Bonnie and Corleen have to say. First, I want to just say This is a volunteer-led effort. And so please, in the chat, would you thank the volunteers? Emily Teeter is leading all the Job Search Council matching. She's a full-time job as a product manager, and nights, weekends, whatever, she's helping all of us. And it's just absolutely amazing. She and many others that you see in the chat today are volunteering to help make this happen. And Corleen and Bonnie were both early readers of the book who helped to shape it. And Bonnie was on the volunteer team as well until she got a full-time job, right? And it's fantastic. So there's a lot of heart here and a lot of people really donating time and effort and expertise to help everybody, because we know this is such a hard moment, and there's not been enough attention paid to how you create an environment where you can really do this well and address that emotional imbalance, that roller coaster that Bonnie was talking about, and find jobs that you deserve. That's what we want. I mean, both of these people landed great jobs. It's like so fabulous. It's like, wow. And that's going to really continue to have an impact on their careers and the people around them, as well as, of course, the customers that they serve. So Bonnie and Corleen, yeah, what are any final thoughts or words? What would you say? Read the book, join the Job Search Council. Don't do it alone. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I would say definitely the first step is forming the council. Like, you need to have that support network and that level of accountability. The other piece is it's not a silver bullet. And I would say you have to do the work. And so this is not about reading the book and writing some documents and talking to people. It really is going through the efforts of self-reflection. It is putting yourself out there and doing those reverse exit interviews, talking to people in your network, being honest with yourself about what makes you happy, what doesn't make you happy, what you're looking for. But it is a time-consuming process that you kind of get what you put into it. And so I will say, using the resources in the book and all that stuff is helpful, but it's really about the conversations and journey that will get you there. And you just need it. There's no shortcuts. Like, that's just, especially in this market. I was like near the end, I had this having conversations with recruiters. I'm like, I feel like things are slowing down. And I actually had the most honest conversation with recruiters, not necessarily about the job, like just understanding the market and these sorts of things that I don't know I would have had otherwise. But yeah, I mean, this market is a bit different. So I think you're going to have to work a bit harder to get yourself in the right place to identify the jobs and have the right conversations. So.
Yeah.
I think my final words would just be, again, think of yourself as the product, and you have to put the time in to do research. You have to test your theories. You have your board of directors and your job search council, and the time you put into it is, the kinds of results you get. And don't be afraid to iterate and change and grow with that group as you go through the process.
I love the emphasis on the journey, right? And the self-reflection, the process. Phil and all of us are here to give you the tools, but tools is a good gray springboard to get you started. But you have to do the hard work, do the reflection, go talk to people, go figure it out, just like you build yourself as a product. So I love ending on that advice. I think it's a great takeaway for everyone. And we get a lot of loves for the volunteers, right? Max, couple shout out for Emily, from Max. Yeah, Emily is great. From Justin, amazing for all your hard work. And thank you, every volunteers. We also get a lot of shout out from the community for the panel, for this panelists and for the session. So everyone's names being mentioned, and thank you everyone with a heart emoji. Now,
can I just ask everyone to give a round of applause to you, Shivi? You are doing so much. It's so fabulous. Can we all thank you? She's doing so many programs and so much outreach to support the product community and the broader world. She really deserves our thanks.
Thank you. I'm honored. All right. So, folks, this is part 2 of part 4 special series. We drop a lot of turns about reverse exit interview, talking to recruiters, Manukin 1-pagers, 2-pagers. Those are tools that we give you to help you identify candidate market fit. So next week, same time, Thursday, is when we will be talking to another great group of panelists to identify, how they find their product market fit. And then in 2 weeks' time, session number 4 is when we will talk about how to negotiate better beyond just compensation and salaries to set yourself up for success. So thank you so much, everyone. Again, links to register is in the detail tab on event description on the page, and I look forward to seeing many of you next week and in the following Thursday. And thank you so much. Special shout out to Bonnie and Corleen for taking the time, sharing your experience, especially you, Bonnie, being vulnerable and sharing the being ghosted experience. But again, it's not within your control. And I love how fast you bounce back. That's really, what we really needed in today's, job search environment. And I hope everyone can, learn that from you. And yeah, Corleen, thank you for sharing so many resources around how you guys best practice of managing your job search console and getting the most out of it. So
these are 2 pioneers of the Job Search Council method. So if you like this method, you give them a round of applause as well. I mean, come on. Woo-hoo!
All right. Thank you, everyone. See you next Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.